Good morning. Oh, that was lovely. I sat there and I thought, what if they don't say anything? Well, I'll just nag them. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Rappahannock. My name is Penny, and I'm delighted to be the service leader today for David Scarbrough. David's topic today is how can we care for the unselfish self? He will explore the practice of non-attachment, a spiritually constructive way of relating to others and the world. As members of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Rappahannock, we come together to create a welcoming and inclusive community of diverse individuals seeking spiritual meaning in our lives. We listen deeply to one another, speak our truths with integrity, honor ideas and beliefs that differ from our own. We take responsibility for our words and actions, striving always to live with compassion and love for ourselves and for others. We are committed to promoting social justice and serving all members of our wider community. The lotus is a symbol of non-attachment in some religions in Asia, owing to its ability to grow in muddy waters, yet produce an immaculate flower. As we light this chalice, it is a symbol of the light of reason, the warmth of community, and we need that today, and the flame of hope that we share. Our opening words today are from Steve Lisick. Togetherness as one is real. It is perhaps the only thing that is real. I am referring to oneness. This is our essential state of being, not only humans, but all animals, plants, and things at the conscious level of being. Our speaker today is David Scarbrough, and he's going to be introduced by his friend and ours, Jeff Rosenfeld.
Some of you may recall 2 weeks ago in the chalice, David was described as a beloved yoga instructor in the Northern Neck. And he is. Carmela, I don't see her here today, is she? Hi. Carmela invited David to speak to us today. Thank you. When I think of David, I think of a Sanskrit word. The word is prem. Prem means love, but it's a noun. We all have different feelings about what love is, and that's an adverb or an adjective. But prem in Sanskrit refers to a person who is dedicated, surrendered himself or herself without selfishness, able to give love to the world or to other people without expectations in return. And Sanskrit is very meaningful to David. It's an English language for the reason that he became a student of Sanskrit after becoming a yoga instructor. He became a yoga instructor in 1991 after 200 hours of in-residential training. And as use his words, in experiencing the calmness and transformation effect of yoga, he felt the need to understand its roots and the meaning of Sanskrit. So he began studying the language of Sanskrit to understand what I have just spoken of: love, dedication, meaning, without expectation, love in relationship to other people. He went on to get his PhD in religion and theology from the University of Wales in 2003. And his dissertation was to explore the ways between the Eastern and Western religions, which enhances his ability to share love and the experience of Sanskrit. His background, to me, is fascinating. He studied ancient Greek philosophy and language, and then after a semester in graduate school, to use David's words, he got lost and he left, in his own words, moving on to the Northern Neck in 1970. Now here's a fella who grew up building boats with his father, his brother, and he developed a love for woodwork. So when he came to the Northern Neck, he began to work with Tiffany Cockrell at Tiffany's Yachts in Northumberland. And after a few years, he opened his own shop and built boats and repaired boats up and down the East Coast. David teaches yoga at the YMCA in Northumberland and in Lancaster. He also has been attending Quaker meetings since the late 1970s, and in the last few years he has been what's called our clerk. The clerk is the one that, it's the glue that holds us together. So when I think of David and I think of the Sanskrit word prem, David gives his love himself to his yoga students, to whomever he meets, without expectation. He will be speaking today about non-attachment. David will explain it a lot better than I will. Non-attachment for me is not to attach yourself to everything that's surrounding around us in order for me to keep my sanity and survive. He refers to non-attachment as being a spiritual, constructive way of interacting with others in the world. Non-attachment is a key idea in Hindu Bhagavad Gita, which David will explain what that means. And it continues to be important in the Western and Eastern world in Zen Buddhism today. David, we welcome you.
And I need to thank Penny and Marley for helping get this together, and to Carmela for suggesting it, that I talked to you in the first place, and thank you to all of you for listening to me. This was a poem by the Polish poet Czesław Miłosz, and the title is Love. Love means to look at yourself as one would look at distant things. For you are only one thing among many, and whoever sees that way, without knowing it, heals his heart in various ways. A bird and a tree say, friend, and then he wants to use himself and things so that they stand in the glow of ripeness. It doesn't matter if he knows what he serves. Who serves best doesn't always understand. So that's kind of a difficult poem, and you might wonder if looking at yourself as one looks at something distant is a way of curing our natural human selfishness, and how this might also reflect or might affect our relationship to nature, to the bird and the tree. And what does it mean to stand in the glow of ripeness? When pears are ripe, they're perfect and luscious, but we humans never quite come up to that standard. We always mess up. But we might be able to stand in the glow of ripeness and experience the fragrance of the pear. And notice how he segues from this focus on the self, or removing our focus from the self, to the idea of service, to a service which we might not even understand. So I'd also like to read a passage from Shunryu Suzuki. He helped bring Zen to the U.S. about 50 years ago. Each one of us must make our own true way, and when we do, that way will express the universal way. This is the mystery. The best way is to understand yourself, and then you will understand everything. So when you try hard to make your own way, you will help others, and you will be helped by others. Before you make your own way, you cannot help anyone, and no one can help you. You know what they say on the airplane, put your own mask on first before you assist others. What I take from the Milosh and the Suzuki is the idea of non-attachment. That's one of the things that's in there. Non-attachment comes originally from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu text that was written a little bit before the Christian Gospels, probably a couple of centuries before that. And Bhagavad, just to give you an idea what it means, Bhagavad means something like what we mean by the Lord. Gita means song, so it's the song of the Lord. You'll often meet an Indian woman whose name is Gita. His name is song, like somebody would be named melody in English. So what is the Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavad Gita is a spiritual dialogue between the God Krishna and his human friend Arjuna. And during the course of this conversation, Arjuna learns who he is and how to do his own thing, and he becomes devoted to the God Krishna. So what the Bhagavad Gita is about is non-attachment and about that which is spiritual within each one of us. So for the Gita, non-attachment means something pretty simple to begin with. It means that our intent is on the action we're performing, not on the result that would come of that. The attraction of success is not what's motivating us. Cynics say that when we do something for somebody else, we're really doing it so that we'll feel good about ourselves. But if we're non-attached, we're really doing it for the other person. We're not doing it to massage our ego. Or maybe we're doing some project and we're not looking for other people's approval or even for our own satisfaction when we complete what we were doing. If we do have our eye on the outcome, then from the very beginning we'll be enveloped in either the desire for success and the anticipation of enjoying that, or in the fear of failure. We'll be more involved with ourselves than on the other person or on what we're doing. But the Bhagavad Gita does say we need to look at all sides of things. So we need to be aware of the effect of our action. We need to know if there might be some loss or harm incurred during it, and we need to know what our own possibility of actually accomplishing something is. We need to look at all sides of things. So if we take that broad perspective, then we can be impartial and we can really see what's going on. So if we remember what Milosh says about each one of us being only one thing about among many, then we can reduce our sense of self-importance, and we can be more aware of this all sides of things, what may happen. We'll have clarity about our strengths and weaknesses. We'll know what our talents and capacities are. We'll be more aware of where we may do well and where we could go wrong. We're better prepared to perform an action or to cultivate a relationship. Here's what it's like to be really, really attached. We all know what it's like to be, we all have experienced being angry at another person or an institution or political party. It's like we're trying to push that thing away from us or push ourselves away from it. But the more we do that, the more it occupies our mind. It's attaching itself to us. Anger can be a useful motivator to action, but we don't want it to overwhelm us and to control us. So the reason I bring up anger is because it's such a good teacher of the difference between attachment and non-attachment. Because sooner or later we do get over that anger, and when we look back at it, we wonder how we could have allowed ourselves to have been so possessed by something so negative. And when we're doing that, we're in a state of non-attachment. So we experience the difference. It's easy to see how non-attachment is helpful for negative experiences, negative feelings. But I think we need some non-attachment in everything we do. To be non-attached, we need to know something about ourselves. I've just been saying that we want to separate ourselves from our ego in some way, and now I'm saying that we need to connect to ourselves. So what I'm saying is there's a difference between egotism and self-knowledge. If we can really be aware of ourselves, then we can overcome our egotism, at least to some extent. So none of us are going to be perfect, but we can move in that direction. To know ourselves, we need to look at ourselves from a lot of different perspectives, both at a very personal level and also on a larger scale. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I'm very aware, and those of you who did, I'm sure you're very aware of the new sense of freedom and the loosening up of mores and civil rights that happened then. That was such a formative experience that those of you who may be younger and didn't experience that directly, you'll still be influenced by that. And you'll have your own formative experiences that work more for you. I think we all have not only appreciation for our parents, but also criticisms. My parents grew up, or they were formed, they were shaped during World War II and in the period right after that. And when I think about that, and when I look back at some of the things that they did while I was growing up as a child, I have a whole lot better understanding of what that was about for them. Each generation has its own history, and we're all shaped by that. So I think probably most people here grew up in the Judeo-Christian tradition. So we know what we get out of that. Love. That's the main thing we get from that. But we also get some other things from it that have to do with love. Some of the weirder expressions of love in the popular culture, which I think probably everyone has got one or two things that they would think of from that. Christianity is responsible for that too. So there's some negative sides to it also. Then we also have the separation of church and state, which is really unique to the Christian West, even though it's maybe not fully realized. Then there's also, what was I going to say here? We also have equality before the law. Every individual has an equal right to law, and of course we haven't fully come into that either, but we're working towards it, and it is definitely an ideal of the society. It's written into the society. And then there's also a deeper sense of equality, which is the equal worth of each person. There's the nuclear family. That's also an outcome of Christianity. And there's individualism. Whatever you may think of that, you may have some criticisms of that. But that's all Christianity. Even atheists who grew up in this Judeo-Christian society are going to be in that atmosphere and will find themselves virtually determined by those things. Even if you go to reject them, still you have to deal with them. And if you grew up in a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Muslim society, then you'll have your own set of parameters, your own set of I don't want to say really restrictions, but your own set of almost biases. Then there's also your personal history. So all of the things that I just mentioned play into your personal history, and we should be aware of that. We aren't entirely our own persons. We're partly a product of all of those larger currents. But you do have your own personal history. You have good memories and memories that aren't so good, things that you feel that you did well, things that you maybe wish you had done a little bit differently, or that they had been done differently to you. It's very hard to see these things impartially, to look back at yourself, because it's who we are. If you talk to another family member who experienced something in the past with you, some event together, and you talk about it, you may find that they have a completely different understanding of what happened, even down to the facts. The facts are different for you and for them. So that's how hard it is and how biased we are. But we need to try. We should try to understand these things about ourselves. If we do, we can separate the wheat from the chaff. We can keep the things that we feel are beneficial, and we can let go, to some extent anyway, of the other things. If we're not aware of that, we're going to carry all this stuff with us anyway. It's baggage. We're going to carry it with us anyway if we're not aware of it. And it will limit who we can be and what we can do. So this gets a little easier if we think about what Milov says about each one of us being only one thing among many. And then by letting go of our egotism, as he's suggesting, we can serve others better, even purposes which we may not fully understand. So I'd like to end with one short quotation from Suzuki, one more quotation from Suzuki. And I've made a slight edit to this just to emphasize one of his points. We should forget day by day what we have done. This is true non-attachment. And we should do something new. To do something new, we must know our past. Otherwise, we'll only be repeating ourselves. We should not keep holding on to anything we have done. We should only reflect on it. And we must also have some idea of what we should do in the future. But the future is the future, and the past is the past. Now we should work on something new. This is our attitude in how we should live in this world.
Thank you, David. All right, so we're open for discussion.
Hi, David. For me, non-attachment is separating myself from my physical senses, where there's a difference between who I am, and on the top of it all is connected to everything, a oneness. And when you connect it to the oneness, you see everybody as one. And you're not connected to anything, you're totally separated from your ego, as you said. And then things just flow. And you're not attached to the pleasures of the world, and then you go crazy with it. You're not attached to the evils of the world, because that's just out there, and everything's in a flow for you. So the non-attachment is just detaching yourself from this facade that we have, that we're all separate from everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, it's a path of moderation for sure. I think we do need to know ourselves, though, to be able to be non-attached. I don't think we can just say, I'm not going to be egotistical. I'm just going to be one with the world. I think that we have to engage in some serious self-criticism, and that includes not only criticism of how we feel that we have been, but also an awareness of the world that has shaped us. And that was what I was trying to add to this discussion. So I think you began to say this, Jeff, and then didn't quite finish with it, that we separate ourselves to a certain extent from our sensory experiences, or from being completely involved in sensory experiences.
Well,
Yeah.
Once you're separated from your sensory experience, then you go deeper into who you are.
Right.
Who you are has got nothing to do with what's out here. It's got to do what's in here. And that's the separation that you get from detachment from the outside world. The outside world, once you go inside, then it's more of a beauty. You can see and you can flow with it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Great.
I really liked your talk. What I'm worried about is it is very noble, but after all, we are just human beings, and we are not that great. So what I like for you, that you said several times, is just try, which takes the pressure off a little bit for me.
Yes.
But if we try to do the best we can, that I think is good.
Right. If I was totally non-attached, I wouldn't be shaking right now. I wouldn't be so egotistical. It's definitely a matter of striving for it.
David, you know I love you. And you have done so much good with the yoga throughout the years at the Y. And I've enjoyed other talks that you've given. For me, too, I liked what you said. I mean, you want to look at your past and you go through all that, which I have had to do, and see where I am in my life through my past. But I also feel much better to look forward on things, mostly. And so that's what I'm doing more. I don't go back as much as each day is like, like with the Walk with Peace. I'm peaceful this morning and I'm going to see how my day goes. So that's where I'm at. And I appreciate what you said today. Thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks for being here, David. I find the most challenging disattachment has to do with emotions. Emotional attachment to whatever it might be, past, present, future. I find myself more and more thinking about my mother. I saw my mother do this a lot, where she lived out of memories, some of them very painful as a war survivor, and some of them wonderful. And what happens for me is that I forget to just be present in the moment that I'm in. And what you say about focus on action rather than outcome, and focus on being rather than whatever all the other emotional attachments, is both really challenging, but I think a big part of the answer, if I can talk about it in that way.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
David, you speak of knowing yourself. For me, the process began realizing I'm not emotions. I am not anger. What was your process in knowing yourself?
That's a hard question. I'm more analytical about it, probably. I look back at my past, the things that I've done, and I see how they were largely guided by my upbringing and by the the culture that I've grown up in. And it's not that I want to let all that go, but at a certain point I do want to be able to forget about it. You're a person I know who has looked into his past as a Jew and has moved past that in a way. You've, in a sense, forgotten that, not forgotten it, but put it aside for your current level of spirituality. So I see that as a kind of non-attachment. Is that accurate at all? Not too personal, I hope.
Okay, I'm going to take the elephant off the ceiling for just a minute and put all of this in context of the world that we're living in right now. And how you balance that unattachment with realizing that there are terrible things going on around you, and you feel the need to remain attached and involved in trying to create a change before the darkness descends upon us. And that's a struggle that I have with myself every day. And I try to fight away the anger, but the disappointment and the emotions that I cannot disassociate myself with what's going on in this country and around the world, and my desire to do a tiny little thing to try and make a difference. And I try to disassociate my ego from it, but I still feel driven. And so, talk about...
Okay, I think that applies not just to social action, but also to our relations with other people. I mean, how do you distinguish between attachment, which we're saying is not such a great thing, and care? Whether it's care for another person or care in a sense of really worrying about the rest of the world. And I think that's a very hard balance to strike, which you're struggling with. And I can't really answer that question except that there should be some balance, which you know because you were saying, you know, you don't want to get so emotional about it that it's controlling you, but on the other hand, you don't want to lose your care. So that's the big difficulty with non-attachment, is it does not mean not caring. And how do you detach yourself and still care? I mean, it's something we all have to answer for ourselves in the context, and you have a very strong context for that. Sorry, I can't answer that better. I can't do it for myself either.
So, similar to that question, I have some thoughts on all of this. And there's the feminine way of healing where you go into the past and you see it with a new angle and you feel into things with new context, and you kind of feel and femininely heal and shed. And then the more masculine approach is more with the logic brain, where you analyze and you understand through the analysis. And I think that in regards to your question, a lot of times when you're fully stuck in the emotional, you can't necessarily think as easily how to actually logically fix the problem with the ways that we're able to fix the problem with our small selves. But we're bigger also when we all get together. And so you have to, I think, and I'd like your thoughts on this too, like detached enough that you're not fully stuck in the emotions. You feel the emotions and let them go, and then you can kick on your brain and be like, all right, well, let's figure out exactly what would fix this if everybody did it with me. And from the macrocosm to the microcosm, like you were saying, if you're in an argument, my husband loves to say, but are they right? And he's really good at all of this, and we both will do that question, because often you get triggered and you get stuck in your emotions when people say things, and a lot of times you get triggered not necessarily because that person's wrong, but because they're right and you don't want to look at it.
Sure. Well, let me just make one statement about the analytical versus the emotional. you would not bother to analyze it if you didn't care about it. So there's already emotion that goes with the analysis. The analysis is not abstract because it would never happen if it was. If you weren't concerned about your past, as I tend to think about how I did such and such a thing. If I didn't care about it, I wouldn't try to analyze it. So to me, the emotion goes with the analysis. Some people might spend more time analyzing, and other people might spend more time. You could describe it better than I probably.
Just feeling.
Just feeling, yeah, just feeling,
You
right,
get stuck in the feeling.
right, right,
You need them both.
yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much for speaking with us, and what a lovely discussion. I'm really appreciating it, and especially the things after what Selene said. So I think we've been given a metaphor, a lovely couple of metaphors over the past couple of weeks. I've been watching from our house the water in the river, which has taken the slabs of ice and made them into round stones. And it made me think about what my husband, my dear husband of 57 years, has often said, which is, you got to roll with the punches. So here we are with actual ice when we're frightened by the other ice. And it's just kind of comforting to watch the river roll those slabs of ice into stones. So may we make good things happen somehow out of all this turmoil. Thank you for your talking, speaking.
Thanks.
So, and I want to follow up on kind of the feminine approach, because I've started using those methods in my professional practice in the past decade or so. And the ability to not do the masculine and figure it out, the ability to not take sides and set and be present with. And also, once we take a side, we're lost. And that, the practice of holding paradoxes, again, because we're in the age of complexity. We're not in the linear age where fixing actually made sense. The ability to hold the polarity, the opposites, and not collapse to one of them, but to say, given the current present moment, not the past thoughts, not the future fears, but given the present moment, what's the thing that comes up through us to do? And again, most of our mind is not in our head, it's not our ego. Our gut mind, our heart mind, our body intelligence, that's moving into the feminine. It's moving into the right brain, the body, the higher self. Those are places that actually can't be lied to, like our mind. And we can find, if we hold that neutrality and accept that they're paradoxes and not have to fix, we can find the place. And the monks, I was with them on Friday, and they were talking about it in terms of, are we paying attention enough to realize we're having a thought? And then when we realize we have a thought, just name it and not do anything. Come back to our breath. So
Could I excuse you for a moment, just interrupt you. One of the things you're talking about is impartiality, and that's what we get from non-attachment, is impartiality. We don't jump to one side or the other. We look at them, whether we look at them we look at them in an analytical way, but with feeling that goes with the analysis, because as I said, there's no analysis without feeling. So this is impartiality, and this is very important aspect of non-attachment and of this Hindu thought that we're particularly talking about today. So
thank you.
Thank you, yeah. Thanks.